Welcome to the JOWMA Wellness Inaugural Summit. Tonight's topic is nutrition for heart health. I am Dr. Jacqueline Segelnick, one of the committee members for JOWMA Wellness. I'm a family medicine resident with a passion for wellness and healthy lifestyle, focusing on prevention. I'm also the creator of Cooking for Boards on Instagram. The Jewish Orthodox Women's Medical Association is a nonprofit organization whose membership includes Jewish Orthodox female physicians and trainees. Our department, JOWMA Wellness, was created with the goal of providing medically conscious, evidence-based recommendations for everyday living. JOWMA Wellness partners with medical and wellness professionals to create practical education and training for Orthodox Jewish women. JOWMA Wellness will cover topics related to nutrition, fitness, mental health, meditation, and sleep to mitigate disease risks and promote prevention rather than cure. Tonight, we'll be focusing on heart health. Dr. Sarah Rosanel, an internist and cardiology fellow, along with Julie Wilcox, wellness expert, nutritionist, and yoga instructor, will share their perspectives and areas of expertise. Tonight, you will learn how everyday choices that we make around our food and exercise habits can affect the health of our hearts. You will learn how to make impactful changes to improve your own heart health and that of your families. There will be a post-webinar survey, which you will receive after the webinar and is also posted in the chat box. Please fill the anonymous survey out, as this will help us conduct research on this education. Those that fill out the survey will be entered to win an Amazon gift card of $100. We'd also like to remind you that this forum does not substitute for getting individualized medical advice from your doctor. There will be a Q&A after each presentation. Please keep questions broad. All questions should be posted in the question box. If you'd like your questions to remain anonymous, please hit the Remain Anonymous button. Your presence on this webinar is completely anonymous. Your video and voice are not enabled and attendees cannot be viewed. Your presence here is completely anonymous. We'd like to thank our generous sponsors, Gourmet Glot, Kosher Culinary Center, Israel Gelfish with Semi-Precious Films, and the EGL Foundation for partnering with us in promoting women's wellness education and helping to empower women with information to make changes to improve their health. I would like to present our first speaker, Dr. Sarah Rosanel. Dr. Sarah Rosanel is a board-certified internal medicine doctor and cardiology fellow. After studying at Yeshiva University during College for Women, she graduated with a BA in biochemistry. Dr. Sarah Rosanel was always involved in research, so she decided to dedicate a full year doing research at NYU after college. Dr. Rosanel went on her medical journey to study in Israel at the Technion Israel Institute of Technology. She then came back to New York City to complete her internal medicine residency and is currently completing her cardiology fellowship at the same institution. She is also American Heart Association liaison for the Cardiology Fellows of Greater New York and a member of the American College of Cardiology Women in Cardiology Communication Committee. She has published many medical articles and perspective pieces on various medical journals. She's the chair of our JOWMA Communications Committee and editor-in-chief of the JOWMA Blog and a member of the Wellness Committee. Her Instagram account opens a window into what it's like to be a woman in cardiology, a male-dominated field where only 10% are women. And you could follow her at Dr. Rosanel.
Thank you, Dr. Segelnik, for the introduction. Hello, everybody. We are going to talk about nutrition and heart. So I'm about to share my screen right now. Here we go. All right, so this is the start of a wellness webinar series, meaning we're going to have hopefully a bunch of events like that. And what we're going to focus on tonight is going to be the nutrition for heart health. So this was our flyer, which you probably saw. Okay, so a few things we're going to talk about. So my talk is going to be about 20-25 minutes. So we'll try to cover as much as possible. But a few things we talk about is what's heart healthy eating? What's the role of exercise? What's nutritious food versus processed food? And this, my colleague, Julie Wilcox, the nutritionist, will elaborate more on that. Why do I need carb? Or why do I need to see a cardiologist? What's a DASH diet? What's a Mediterranean diet? What's going on with smoking in your heart, caffeine in your heart? And how does drinking alcohol affect health? So we'll talk about that. But before we do so, let's talk about heart disease, which is my specialty, and the fact that it's the #1 killer in the US. Of note, half of the people who get a heart attack, they do not have warning signs. And to make it even worse, half of the people who actually will get a heart attack won't even make it to the hospital. They'll be dead beforehand. So just a little bit of background information and why heart disease is such an important topic and why we're doing this event tonight, for example. It's because heart disease are the leading cause of death in America for both men and women, okay? It can happen at any age. I can tell you for a fact, working in a main hospital in Brooklyn, we see heart attack at any age. You could be in your 20s or in your 30s or in your 40s. People come with a heart attack, unfortunately. Granted, the risk does increase with age, but it can still happen at any age. Just to give you some numbers, there's more than 500,000 a year of people, of American, who will die from heart disease, which is basically 1 in 4. This sentence, I really like it, and I wanted to show it to you. A heart attack after the age of 80 is an act of God, but a heart attack before 80 is something preventable. And that is why we're having this discussion tonight, and that's why we're talking about it tonight, because there is a lot of risk, cardiovascular risk, that will lead somebody to have a heart attack, but it is preventable, and we're going to talk about the prevention of it. And watching what you eat is definitely one of the main key, the major role that you can do for yourself to help not getting that heart attack. Okay, so tonight is a broad audience. So let's first describe what is heart disease, okay? As you can see in the picture, you have an artery, you have the little blood cells, and you have the fatty plaque. So a heart attack or heart disease is when you have fatty plaque building up in your arteries. Then what's happening to the artery is that it becomes smaller. And that's also what we call atherosclerosis. Then what's going to happen is going to clog over time, and the plaque can rupture and create a blood clot inside the artery. Therefore, the blood flow will be interrupted, and the heart muscle associated with it will die. And that's what's causing a heart attack. Just to go a little bit more into detail, the heart has 3 main big arteries that's feeding oxygen to it. Now, if one of those arteries gets clogged and there is no more flow going into the heart, then a big part of the heart will start, the muscle will start dying. And therefore, the heart will stop eventually. So it's extremely important to be aware of heart disease, what's causing them, and how to prevent them. So the main subject of the topic is, okay, we've heard the heart disease kill, have more than 500,000 a year, men and women. Okay, how can we prevent it? There is, unfortunately, a lot of it is genetic. Okay, so genetic, family history. As a matter of fact, anytime I have a patient coming to me as a cardiologist, the number one question I ask them is, do you have any family history of heart disease? Do you have any mother, father, uncle, aunts who died from a heart attack prematurely? Now, what does the word dying from a heart attack prematurely means? So I'm going to explain to you a little bit. If a woman has a heart attack before the age of 65, that is what we call premature coronary heart disease. If a man has a heart attack before the age of 55, it's also premature heart disease. And that already gives me an indication that the patient who's coming to me today, telling me the mother or the father or somebody in the family had a heart attack in their 40s or 50s, something is off. There's already the genetic, which is a big part of it. Okay, genetics, fine, there's not much we can do. But let's talk about the thing we can actually change, such as high blood pressure. Anybody who has high blood pressure increases their risk of having a heart attack. And there is no way of knowing that you have a high blood pressure unless you come periodically to check with your PCP, your primary care physician, or your cardiologist. And that way you can measure it and we can take actions about it. Diabetes? Diabetes is a big one. Somebody who has diabetes have 2 to 3 times increased chances of developing a heart attack. We'll talk about that. What about the cholesterol? The big, oh, my cholesterol is high, it's running the gene. What is a high cholesterol? What's a good cholesterol, the bad cholesterol? We'll talk about it as well. And finally, we have 2 more. We have the smoking. So it's a big risk factor for heart disease, and obesity. So the central obesity, the one that's around your abdomen, is really the one that has the higher chances of developing heart disease. So we'll elaborate a little bit more throughout my slides, and then feel free to ask me questions at the end. Of note, there are other risk factors of developing heart attacks, such as some liver disease, okay, some kidney disease, anybody who has an inflammatory disease, such as rheumatoid arthritis or joint disease, those double the risk of heart attack. So you're not completely off the hook if, let's say, you have a perfect blood pressure, a perfect cholesterol. If you do have any of those diseases, watch out. And metabolic syndrome, which is what I mentioned earlier with the diabetes and the central obesity, those lead to high triglycerides, which is a type of cholesterol, and this will also triple the risk of heart disease. Okay, so what do we do? You've heard me talking about the smoking, the cholesterol. What do we do? So the number one thing I always tell my patient at the end of each visit, whether when I was in internal medicine, which I'm still working as an internist, or a primary care physician, or a cardiologist, lifestyle modification. So this is key. We talk about that at each visit, and we reinforce and we make a plan so that the next visit, we see where we stand. Nutrition is extremely important. What you eat will determine whether or not you're going to develop a heart attack. And also exercising. Exercising, I'm sure you've heard it, it's extremely important. And we'll talk about how much exercise we actually need. Medication, well, unfortunately, if lifestyle modification doesn't work after a couple of months of us trying together, we will have to resort to medication. Now, if I have any of my patients on those medications, whether it's aspirin or a statin or a beta blocker, I want my patient to take them to be extremely compliant with those medications. So it's also a discussion we always have. We talk about the lifestyle modification and the compliance regarding the meds. So now the question is, should you see a patient? Should we see patients? Should you see a doctor or a cardiologist at a younger age? And the answer is yes. Don't wait for heart disease to happen to just say, oh, okay, now I had a heart attack, I'm 45, and now I'm going to go see a cardiologist. So no, if you do have a family history of heart disease, it is extremely important that you come to see a cardiologist at a younger age, and we will work together. We will do our plans with the lifestyle, with the medication, we'll monitor your blood work, we'll monitor your blood pressure. So it's extremely important to come in a young age. Just a reminder, half of the heart attack are fatal. They do not make it to the hospital. The one I see in my hospital as a cardiologist are the lucky ones, are the ones who were able to have some chest pain, and then they came to me and the heart attack wasn't so big. And then we were able to put stent in them, or we were able to do surgery and eventually save them. But half of the people, and I'm sure every single person in this room, in this virtual room, knows somebody who has died of a heart attack and didn't make it on time. So we mentioned what increases the risk of heart disease. And like I said earlier, blood pressure, major risk factor, not only for heart attack, but also for strokes. It could also affect the kidneys. So high blood pressure is the worst. And there's no way of you knowing you do have high blood pressure unless you measure it. So we call it a silent killer. Some of my patients will tell me, oh, I was upset yesterday and I felt my blood pressure rising and I had some headache. Okay, that's okay. But most of the high blood pressure, my patient with high blood pressure will not have any symptom. So it's extremely important to see a doctor to at least measure it. And then once we measure the blood pressure and it's high, we're going to say, okay, maybe the blood pressure is high today because the patient has what we call lab coat, white coat syndrome, when they're scared to come to the doctor and they're all excited and the blood pressure is high. That's fine. I will buy it the first time. I will ask them to repeat it at home and keep a log at home and measure the blood pressure a couple of times a week, and then come back to me with the blood pressure reading. Then we're really going to establish whether the patient has real high blood pressure or not. So that's one thing. So important to be aware of the blood pressure. So that's one reason why you will come to see a doctor or a cardiologist. Now let's talk about the cholesterol. So more often than not, we know somebody or we ourselves have a history of a high cholesterol, or a friend or a father or mother. So let me talk about that a little bit. Cholesterol is made by our own body. It's made in the liver, and it's essential in many, many ways. The only problem is that the liver makes it and then we eat it, and then it becomes too much to handle. And then it starts building up in the arteries, okay? And this can lead to the arteries becoming smaller and a decreased blood flow, like I said, to the heart, to the brain, and to the kidneys. So let's talk about the question that so many of my patients always ask me. Which one is the good cholesterol again? Which one is the bad cholesterol? So LDL is the bad one. HDL is the good one, okay? So the LDL is the one that causes a buildup of cholesterol inside the artery. The HDL is the good one, and it provides protection against heart disease. I know it's a bit confusing, right? Cholesterol protecting you? Yes, the HDL do protect you. And the HDL is found in fish, avocado, and Julie, the nutritionist, will talk more about that. So HDL level, it should be above 40. The LDL, that's bad, is anything above 100 is bad for LDL. For diabetic patient, we want the LDL to be even lower, to more the 60s or 70s. Any LDL above 190, that's it, we failed. The patient needs to be on a statin. Granted, initially we can try the lifestyle modification, but if an LDL is so high, which is 190, that is terrible. If we have an LDL below 190, then we talk about it. We have risk stratification, and we have some specific medical calculator that calculates the risk of developing a heart attack over time. And based on that specific number, which includes the age of the patient, the sex of the patient, the systolic blood pressure, whether the patient smokes or not, and then we decide if it's higher than 10, 20%, we said, okay, fine, the risk is too great. We need to start you on a medication, on a statin. However, if somebody is not diabetic or doesn't have coronary artery disease, and the LDL is in between those numbers, anywhere between 100 to 190, then we work very closely to the patient. We monitor the patient closely to make sure that we try to decrease that number. So the only way to know what's your HDL and your LDL is to do a lipid profile. And to do a lipid profile, again, you have to come see a doctor. Now, let's talk about what's the problem when somebody eats too many saturated fats, okay? So what happened is that the saturated fat-rich food, they will decrease the number of receptors on the liver. Therefore, instead of the LDL being stored, it's going to be free everywhere in your body, in your blood, and it's going to increase the risk of plaque development over time. Now, let's talk about the sugars and the diabetes. Again, sugar is important. We all need sugar. If somebody is hypoglycemic, meaning if the sugar level drops too dramatically in your body, they can die from it. So everything in moderation. We need the cholesterol, we need the sugar, but not that much. So added sugar will drive obesity, insulin resistance, inflammation, and further worsen the wall of the artery. So that's why somebody who has diabetes, they will most often than not have silent heart attack, meaning they will have little bit micro heart attack, but they won't even realize it until it's too late. So the insulin is one of the hormones that's, again, it's made by your own body, it's made by the pancreas, and it helps move glucose around. When somebody has diabetes, they do not have enough insulin, and therefore the glucose stays in your body. And that will increase the risk of death from heart attack tremendously. So this is a nice slide that just gives you an idea about how diabetes can increase your risk of heart attacks. So it has a 2 to 3 times increase. Okay, somebody who has diabetes, they have to know that they have more chances than others of getting heart disease. Of note, 30% of all stents that were placed in America were diabetic patients. It caused already almost 300,000 heart attacks every single year. And it has a 2 to 4 times increase of morbidity and mortality rates, and 60% chance of dying from a heart attack. So those are pretty scary numbers. So that's very, very important to, when somebody is diabetic, to follow with your cardiologist and your PCP extremely closely. So let's talk about the obesity one. Obesity is not directly linked to heart disease, but it is linked to higher bad cholesterol and the lower good cholesterol. So therefore, it will also lead to high blood pressure and diabetes. And those are the killers. So what does the American Heart Association want and recommend? So healthy diet, healthy lifestyle, that's what you have in your own hand to be able to fight it. Exercise. So I mentioned earlier that you'll need to exercise, but how much exercise do you actually need to be considered a healthy person? So the recommendations are 150 minutes a week, which basically, if you break it down, is about 20 minutes a day for 7 days. If you want to do it for 5 days a week, that's fine. Do 30 minutes a day, okay? So moderate physical activity is taking a brisk walk outside, that's fine. And what's extremely important is to do it regularly. Not, oh, this week I feel like exercising and next week I don't. Do it every day as part of your routine, like brushing your teeth, like washing your face. You just do it. Now, let's talk a little bit about what's a nutritious food. So unfortunately, in the American diet, people who are trying to get skinnier, they are probably getting skinnier, they're not getting healthier, which is a very, very big difference. Nutritious food come from all food groups. There's no such a thing as, oh, I don't eat carb, I don't eat rice, I don't eat bread, I don't eat fruits, not happening. We need food and nutrition from every single food group. I'm quickly going to mention the DASH diet just because it's a diet that we use for hypertension, and that's part of the lifestyle modification. It's basically, as you can see from the picture, lots of fruit and vegetable, a little bit of dairy, a little bit of chocolate and fat, a little bit of legumes and seeds, a little bit of protein, but mostly fish, and also some grains are fine. Very, very, very important. At every single visit, I always tell my patient, the first question I ask is, do you smoke or use any drugs? And if they say they smoke, I work with them every single visit to stop the smoking. Don't smoke, don't vape, don't do marijuana, don't do any of the smoking. This tremendously increases your risk of heart disease. And like I said, it's one of the factors that we take into consideration to see what's your chances of developing a heart attack over the next 10 years. Now, let's talk about the alcohol consumption. So I'm sure you've heard from a friend of a friend that, oh yeah, the French do it. Have 1 cup of wine, of red wine every night and you will live until 120. Not true. So, okay, if you have a drink or two on the weekend for Shabbos, that's fine, not a problem, keep doing that. But do not have 1 drink or 2 drinks or any drinks every day. That's not acceptable. Drinking too much will increase your blood pressure, will lead to obesity, stroke, breast cancer, liver disease, depression, suicide, blah, blah, blah. So don't do it. If you don't drink, do not start. So the whole controversy is because red wine does have this ingredient, which is called a flavonoid and other antioxidants. And that's why this reduces the heart attack risk. But of note, grapes do as well. Blueberry do as well. Red grape juice do as well, okay? And also the alcohol will increase the HDL, true, but so does physical exercise. So definitely American Heart Association do not recommend to drink wine as a way to be healthy. Now let's talk about coffee and heart disease. So this is a bit controversial. We do know that caffeine stimulates the central nervous system. It makes you more awake. We do know it releases some fatty acid from the fat tissues. We also know it affects the kidney and makes you pee a lot. But whether high caffeine increases the risk of heart disease is still under study. Another little diet I wanted to mention is the Mediterranean diet. You may or may not have heard it, but which is basically a lot of fruit and vegetables again, a lot of healthy fats like olive oil, avocado, nut seeds, and some fish. So fish as the main way of protein versus meat. And also some whole grain and herb and spices. Again, Julie, the nutritionist, will talk about that more. One thing that's extremely important, and I do emphasize that with my patient all the time, do not season your food with salt. So salt, use a very little amount daily. Try to use something else, but salt increases your blood pressure, and that's a killer also. So extremely important that you should limit your salt intake for a heart healthy diet. Now, the last slide that I would like to finish my talk with, because it's already 8:32 and I'm almost up in terms of my time with you, is it's okay to allow yourself an occasional treat. It's okay to indulge some time here and there. It's okay to have 1 candy or 1 cake or 1 chips. It's fine as long as it won't derail you from your heart healthy diet. My whole point is everything in moderation is fine. And don't be discouraged. Is you can do it, and we can all do it, and hopefully we will decrease the heart attack rate that we have currently in our community, and we will be healthy and happy. So thank you so much for listening to me, and I will stop sharing my screen right now, and I will let Dr. Sekelnik take over.
Thank you, Dr. Rosanel. We'll now start the Q&A session. Please keep in mind to ask general, broad questions only. And just a reminder, you can ask the questions in the question box. Okay, first question, Dr. Rosanel. What if I already have high cholesterol? What next?
All right, so the question depends on a couple of factors. Number one, you have high cholesterol. Do you have diabetes? That's the first question I would ask. Number two, do you have known coronary artery disease, which is somebody who already knows that they had a stent or something like that? Then yes, you have to take a statin. You have to take medication for it. Also, what is the level of a high cholesterol? I'm interested into the LDL, which is the bad one. Is your LDL above 190? Then yes, you have to take a statin. Or is your LDL somewhere like 120s and you don't have diabetes and you don't have high blood pressure, you do not smoke? In that case, for example, I will not necessarily start a medication at all. I will follow up with the patient periodically. We'll do lipid panels and we will do lifestyle changes and we'll work together.
Thank you. If my family member had a heart attack, when should I see a cardiologist?
So that's an important question. If you have any family member that had heart disease, especially younger than 55 for men or 65 for women, you should see a cardiologist pretty young. I would even say in your 20s, so that we can get started with some genetic testing and we can also monitor your blood pressure, your lipid profile, etc.
If I have working kidneys, why would I have to watch my salt intake?
So the salt do increase your blood pressure. So unfortunately, even if you have the best kidney in the world, having a high blood pressure will eventually lead to strokes and to heart disease. So even for somebody perfectly healthy, we do recommend not to have a lot of salt. And Julie, the nutritionist, will get into the details about how much salt you can have a day. So definitely get used from a young age to decrease your salt intake.
Does grilling food make a difference instead of frying the food?
Yes, so frying the food, you have more oil, therefore more saturated fat, versus grilling it, then you try not to use oil, you just do it over the grill. So grilling is definitely better than frying. And I do mention that to all my patients when they come to me at every visit, as a matter of fact, when we talk about lifestyle changes and what's their diet, what does it consist of? The second they tell me about fried food, we stop it right here. We say, no, we don't do fried food. It's unhealthy. We have to definitely watch that.
Does high blood pressure or high cholesterol cause kidney stones?
No, kidney stone is different. It's a different mechanism compared to blood pressure or to cholesterol. A kidney stones forms, again, it's genetics most of the time, but it forms when there's the urine that didn't get through the kidney properly. So it just become like a crystal, and then it's small enough that it actually goes through the ureter and then gets excreted while peeing. It has nothing to do with the blood pressure or with the cholesterol.
Does everything you said apply to someone who has HOCM?
HOCM is a whole different ball group. Okay, HOCM is hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. It's for young people who are born like that, with their heart being thicker. Okay, so for HOCM is different. They're already on medication. They're already considered to have heart disease. So in terms of cholesterol, definitely it applies for the HOCM patient as well. In terms of blood pressure, 100%. If you have high blood pressure, you'll take medication or do lifestyle changes initially. But already somebody who has hypertrophied cardiomyopathy already is considered somebody with heart disease.
You've mentioned that belly fat is a source of increased probability of heart attack. As
Yes.
women who have had many babies, it's hard to get rid of that belly fat. So how can we address this?
I completely agree with you. I am a victim of the belly fat as well. I have 3 young children, and I do have the belly fat that's so stubborn and there. And I am aware that it is an increase. I have an increased risk of having heart disease just by having this belly fat. So what we all need to do, watch our diet, exercise regularly. If our weight goes down, the belly fat goes down as well. So that's something that's extremely important to keep in mind.
Is there a sort of pill to bind and store cholesterol so it doesn't affect your heart?
Sorry, can you repeat that? Is there a pill that?
Yeah, is there a pill that binds and stores cholesterol so it won't affect your heart?
So maybe what you're referring to is a statin, like simvastatin or the Crestor or all of those medication. So yes, there's many medication that are on the market to decrease the lipids, which I didn't go into it in this talk. They work. They make miracles. I've seen the LDL, which is the bad cholesterol, being extremely high. And then we've tried diet, lifestyle modification. Unfortunately, it did not work. And then the patient took some statin. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And then we moved on to a different type of medication for the cholesterol. And then the LDL went from being over 200 to being 40. So it does work. We try to do always lifestyle modification first, and then we move on to cholesterol pills. So yes, there is a lot of pills on the market that do work and will decrease your cholesterol tremendously. However, let's not underestimate the power of prevention and lifestyle modification and changing your diet. That's extremely important.
Does birth control pills raise blood pressure enough to consider other birth control options?
Birth control pills are not supposed to raise your blood pressure. Maybe it's a confounding factor or something else that's raising your blood pressure, but I wouldn't blame it on the birth control pill.
What steps should someone take if diabetes and high cholesterol run in their family?
So if there is diabetes and cholesterol in the family, what step should the person take? Okay, extremely important to see a primary care physician that will also help manage both of them, and a cardiologist, okay? So having heart disease in the family, it's an indication to being followed over time by a cardiologist and a PCP for lipid work and for blood pressure measurement, and to work on the lifestyle modification as well. So those 3 things are key. When you already know that you have diabetes and heart disease in your family, just like me, my family has heart disease and diabetes, so I'm hyper aware about that.
Are carbs, bread, and rice bad for someone who has known heart disease, as in someone who already has stents?
So that question will be further addressed by my friend, Julie Wilcox, the nutritionist. But as a cardiologist, everything in moderation. Again, we need our grains, okay? We need our carbs in moderation.
What can I do if I thought I recently had a silent heart attack?
Okay, if somebody already figured out they had a silent heart attack, which I'm wondering, how did they figure this out? Probably because they went to the doctor for whatever reason, they checked the blood work, and they saw that the troponin, which is an enzyme from the heart, was high. And maybe they even had an angiography, which shows that they had a heart attack, but it wasn't addressed back then when it happened, meaning one of the arteries of the heart is already closed off. Like I mentioned, we have 3 main arteries supplying oxygen to the heart. Now, if they do have one of the artery closed off, it's called coronary artery disease. They have to be on multiple medication. There's nothing in the world that will change that. So lifestyle modification, number 1, is a must, but medication is a must as well, such as a statin for the cholesterol, even if they have excellent cholesterol. I have so many of my cardiac patients, they come to me, they tell me, oh, I don't have cholesterol, or oh, I don't have blood pressure, so why should I take those meds? Those are for your heart. As simple as that. Even if your LDL is 40 or 60, you need to be on a statin, okay, on a beta blocker for the heart, and on antiplatelet medication such as Plavix or Eliquis, Plavix or one of those, and you have to be on aspirin. That's a no-brainer. So there's a lot of medication somebody has to be if they had a heart attack, whether silent or not.
And then the last question we have time for is, do heart attacks present differently in a woman versus a man?
Absolutely. I didn't talk about that in my talk tonight. 100%. Heart attack present differently, whether you're a man or a woman. It presents differently throughout all different kind of people. The one that we all know is a crushing chest pain on the left side, radiating to the shoulder, radiating to the jaw, like an elephant sitting on you. But that's textbook, okay? Not every patient read the textbook. So we do have a lot of patients who complain about some GERD symptoms. I have pain after I eat, or I have this weird feeling over here, okay? Or I have this stomach pain, stomach cramps. Definitely, that could also be a heart attack. Now, yes, I completely understand. We're not going to run every time we have a stomach pain or every time we think we have reflux, but be hyper alert about your own body and your own family history. If you know that there is some heart attack in the family, don't wait for last minute to come to see a doctor. Get evaluated. We have so many tests we can do. On top of the blood work, we can also do a stress test. We can also do a coronary angiography, which is more invasive, or a CT of the coronary, which is just a CAT scan, to evaluate how much disease you have in your arteries.
Thank you, Dr. Rosanel.
My pleasure.
I will now introduce our next speaker. Our next speaker is Julie Wilcox. Julie Wilcox is a seasoned health and wellness expert with 2 decades of experience across nutrition, yoga, and fitness. Through her entrepreneurial ventures, Julie Wilcox Wellness, she has worked with thousands of clients individually as well as through educational, corporate, and nonprofit wellness programs. Julie earned her Master's of Science degree in Nutrition and Dietetics at NYU and national certifications in yoga and fitness training through Yoga Alliance of America and ACE. She also completed her BA at Harvard College in English and American Literature. She is also author of the upcoming book, The Win-Win Diet: How to Be Plant-Based and Still Eat What You Love.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to take a moment to share my screen here. Thank you, Jacqueline, in the meantime, for that lovely introduction. Okay, so let's begin. Hi, everyone, first of all. It's a pleasure to be here with you today to launch JOWMA Wellness. I want to take a moment to extend my thanks to everyone who contributed to making this happen today. We all worked incredibly hard to develop this program, and we're excited to begin its delivery to you all. The reason we're starting with this particular topic of nutrition and heart health is because it's a great bridge from where JOWMA has been focused on medicine to lifestyle aspects of health and well-being. A heart-healthy diet will not only prevent chronic and even fatal cardio events, but will also enhance your energy, focus, sleep quality, and physical comfort. While there are numerous ways to execute on a heart-healthy diet, there are a few key nutrition principles that apply across the board. In the past, the focus of heart-healthy diet discussions has been primarily on nutrients, and although they are still of utmost importance, newer research shows that there are other crucial components to take into consideration as well. So to begin, this slide summarizes a few ways that are helpful in structuring a heart-healthy diet. We have understanding which nutrients, eating patterns, foods, and approaches are heart-healthy, comprehending appropriate portion sizes, implementing mindful eating habits, and promoting and maintaining a healthy gut microbiome. Let's look at specific nutrients which protect against cardiovascular disease. First, we have unsaturated fats, followed by antioxidants, fiber, vitamins, minerals, and phytochemicals. I'm going to take a couple of minutes to go through each of these, some in a little more depth than others. Monounsaturated fats include olive, canola, peanut, sesame, and safflower oils, avocados, and almonds, hazelnuts, and pecans. This type of fat is important because it reduces LDL cholesterol, raises HDL cholesterol, which sweeps bad cholesterol back to the liver for removal, and lowers inflammation. Then we have antioxidants. Next, we're gonna go to polyunsaturated fats, of which omega-3s is one of the most important to heart health. Foods that are rich in omega-3s are salmon, mackerel, codfish oil, herring, sardines, and tuna, as well as flax seeds, chia seeds, and walnuts, and finally, canola, soybean, and sunflower oils. The numerous reasons omega-3s are important to preventing CVD include that they are an integral part of cell membranes and affect function of cell receptors in membranes, are a starting point for hormones that regulate blood clotting, contraction and relaxation of artery walls, and inflammation. They help the heart beat steadily, lower blood pressure, heart rate, and triglycerides, improve vessel function, and ease inflammation, which may contribute to atherosclerosis. Then we have antioxidants, which serve to scavenge free radicals that can cause cell and DNA damage. Fiber lowers cholesterol and blood pressure, fills you up so that we don't end up eating nutrient-poor foods, and helps stabilize blood sugar levels. Vitamins and minerals such as vitamin D, magnesium, potassium, sodium, and several B vitamins can reduce blood pressure, hardening of the arteries, and help your heart rhythm to stay regular. Finally, phytochemicals help to fight inflammation and block the development of new blood vessel tumors. So in terms of what a daily meal plan that takes these nutrients into consideration looks like, you could have a bowl of oatmeal with some walnuts and fresh berries for breakfast, a salad with avocados, other veggies, some lean protein, and a dressing made with olive oil for lunch, a small handful of almonds for a snack, and salmon with wild rice and vegetables for dinner. Okay, so now that we know about nutrients that promote heart health, let's take a look at eating patterns that do the same. Dr. Rosanel talked about the DASH and Mediterranean diets, and those are great ones. But I also love the other 4 diets listed, which are the topic of my book, The Win-Win Diet. All of these diets put fruits, vegetables, whole grains, nuts, seeds, legumes, and lean proteins like fish and tofu first. They also emphasize the importance of reducing processed food. Some allow animal product foods in moderation and others do not. The flexitarian eating pattern is one that allows for small amounts of animal source foods, including meat. The pescatarian diet eliminates meat but still allows for fish, dairy, and eggs. So let's take a deeper dive into the actual foods themselves. Fruits and vegetables are the most important food group. They lower total and LDL cholesterol as well as systemic inflammation. They stabilize blood sugar and maintain healthy insulin levels. And they balance out our hunger hormones, ghrelin and leptin. In considering your fruit and vegetable choices for any given day, select a variety of color because each color has distinct antioxidants, phytochemicals, vitamins, minerals, and even fiber types. Fresh whole fruits and veggies, and even frozen ones with no added fat, sugar, or sodium. And if you have to buy canned or prepared foods, select those without added sodium or sugar and which are packed in water. As far as preparation is concerned, with fruit, if you want to get fancier than eating it fresh, you can consume it in a smoothie or as a stew for breakfast. You can also poach pears, apples, and peaches, among other fruits, and even make healthy desserts like an oat-topped fruit crumble. My favorite easy cooking methods for vegetables are roasting them on a sheet pan with extra virgin olive oil, salt, and pepper, and sauteing them with simple herbs and spices. And again, extra virgin olive oil. Preparations to avoid are those with cream sauces that are fried or which are breaded. I've also indicated the USDA serving sizes for the average adult. As you can see for this group, it's 2 cups of fruit per day and 3 cups of vegetables. Turning to whole grains, there's the myth that carbs are evil, but the truth is whole grain carbs are one of the healthiest foods you can eat on the planet. The USDA recommends we get about 3 to 6 servings of grains per day, and that at least half of those are whole grains. There are so many types of whole grains from which you can choose, which to me makes eating them an amazing culinary adventure. Common ones include oats, barley, whole wheat, and brown rice. And then there are a host of others that are also delicious, like spelt, amaranth, millet, teff, wild rice, and rye. Unique qualities of bran and fiber, which aid heart health, are that they slow the breakdown of starch into glucose, maintaining steady blood sugar, prevent formation of small blood clots that can trigger strokes and heart attacks, and lower cholesterol and move waste through the digestive tract for removal. I experiment with and develop mouth-watering whole grain-based recipes all the time, whether it's millet with plant-based butter, cardamom, and walnuts, quinoa-based vegetarian meatballs, or whole wheat pasta. Here we have protein. And again, you can see, as Dr. Rosanel pointed out, that eating about 4 ounces of fish, especially types that are high in omega-3s 2 times a week, is great. In general, for the lean protein group at large, you want to consume about 5 ounces per day, combining the fish, legumes, eggs, soy products, nuts and seeds, skinless poultry, low-fat and/or vegan dairy products, and lean ground meats. Dairy is a group that can either prevent or contribute to heart disease, but it is not essential. It can be good for heart health if you choose low-fat or no-fat dairy products, but full-fat dairy contains saturated fat, which you want to avoid eating in large quantities. More on that later. At this point, you might be wondering how dairy contributes to heart health, and the answer is that some studies show that consumption of dairy has an inverse relationship with weight gain. Then there are fermented dairy products that contain probiotics, which are live, good bacteria and yeast that naturally live in your body and fend off the bad bacteria, keeping the gut microbiome in balance. I'll get to the importance of that shortly. When talking about dairy these days, the question about plant-based milk alternatives always comes up. Plant-based beverages, cheeses, and other products are great substitutes, but choose those without added sugars, carrageenans, and know that they are not necessarily nutritionally good replacements for regular dairy. They might be missing key nutrients like calcium, protein, and vitamin D. Dr. Rosanel covered alcohol, but I've outlined the guidelines here, which you can quickly review. The overall message is the less alcohol you drink, the better. There are more ways to heart healthy eating than nutrients, eating patterns, and foods. There are also approaches to how we eat that can significantly impact our heart health. Portion size is one of them. Avoidance of overeating helps prevent weight gain and chronic metabolic diseases such as obesity, diabetes, hypertension, and all the others we've covered. I've listed some easy tips that can help you keep your portions under control. So you can use small plates and bowls, which is a nice little trick because using a small plate makes you feel like you've eaten more than if you had the exact same portion on a larger plate. Avoid seconds and thirds. Eat larger portions of nutrient-rich foods and smaller portions of nutrient-poor foods, and get to know the USDA serving sizes, which are on the previous slides, and you can easily Google them as well. Another approach is mindful eating. You want to make eating a sensory experience. Take the time to look at and smell your food before diving into it. Taste it and savor the flavor, texture, and even sound of it. You might think food is only fuel, but if you make it a sensory experience, it's a healthier way to eat and will move you towards achieving your heart-healthy diet goals. Additionally, slow chew your food, socialize while eating, set up a calming environment with candles, flowers, relaxing music, or anything else conducive to making for a pleasurable experience. And finally, eat until you're full, noting that your brain and your stomach register full at different times, with the brain coming behind about 20 minutes. The last approach I'm going to cover today is the gut microbiome, which affects all organs and systems, including the heart. Dysbiosis is a term for an altered gut microbiome, which when the good and bad bacteria that live in our intestines are out of balance. It occurs most commonly in adults with a poor diet, some babies, and the elderly. Dysbiosis can lead to atherosclerosis, hypertension, and heart failure. So knowing what foods are gut harming is key to a heart healthy diet, and they include too much red meat, fried foods, food with antibiotics, and alcohol. On the other hand, many foods enhance the gut microbiome and reverse damage to it, while at the same time they boost our immune response. Gut-healthy foods include prebiotics, which feed the good bacteria in the colon, fiber-rich food like those that contain the fermentable fiber inulin, and those that have oligosaccharides. Vegetables, fruits, whole grains, legumes, chicory root, dandelion greens, asparagus, Jerusalem artichokes, garlic, onions, leeks, bananas, and whole grains are specific examples of these. As mentioned, probiotics is another category of gut-healthy food. They occur in fermented products like yogurt, kefir, kimchi, and sauerkraut. Now we're going to switch to the nutrients that drive cardiovascular disease. We have saturated fat, trans fat, sodium, and sugar. I will go into detail about each of these in a moment, but first, here is a slide that shows dietary guidelines of how little of these drivers we should be eating. You'll notice it says less than 2,300 milligrams of sodium. And just to give you an idea of what that is, it's the equivalent of about 1 teaspoon of salt. For sugar, less than 10% of added sugar calories amounts to approximately 9 teaspoons for men and 6 for most women and children. So now we're looking at saturated fat. To the left, you can see fats and oils most appropriate to include in your diet, and those that are best to avoid are butter, palm, and coconut oils, meat, and dairy. On the right is a pie chart which indicates top sources of saturated fats in the United States. You can see that sandwiches are on top of the heap at 19%, followed by desserts and sweet snacks, and so on and so forth. As Dr. Rosanel mentioned, saturated fat increases LDL cholesterol, reduces HDL, can cause systemic inflammation, and can raise triglycerides, all of which increase risk factors for cardiovascular disease. Trans fat is another detriment to heart health. These fats are partially hydrogenated oils made by heating liquid vegetable oil in the presence of hydrogen gas and a catalyst. Much like saturated fat, they raise LDL, lower HDL, create inflammation, and contribute to insulin resistance. The best thing you can do for your heart vis-a-vis trans fat is to eliminate it from your diet as much as is possible. And you can do so by avoiding processed and restaurant foods that are fried, think chips, onion rings, and French fries, or baked like donuts and packaged cookies, or that contain margarine. An interesting factoid about trans fat is that it can have a harmful effect on our hearts, even in very small amounts, because for each additional 2% of calories from trans fat we consume daily, the risk of coronary heart disease increases by 23%. The good news is that the US has almost entirely eliminated trans fat from the food industry since 2018. But be aware of the fact that this is not the case in many other countries. Dr. Rosanel covered sodium already, so you can scan this slide. As she mentioned, you want to use herbs and spices, salt-free seasoning blends, and other flavoring alternatives to table salt. Whether it's my tofu and broccoli curry recipe, vegetarian soups, or cumin and turmeric tahini dressing, I've really learned to curb my use of salt in favor of herbs and spices. Baking fish with just a pinch of salt and pepper, extra virgin olive oil, And then garnishing it with parsley and lemon slices is another quick and healthy low sodium dish I love to make. Homemade foods are for sure the most reliable. However, if you eat packaged, frozen, canned, or prepared foods, read the labels carefully and select those that are marked low sodium, reduced sodium, or no salt added. Finally, turning to sugar. The greatest sources of it which we want to avoid are listed on this slide. Some you might know, like sugar-sweetened beverages and candy, and others, like breakfast bars, might surprise you. This doesn't mean you can never enjoy these foods, but that it's best to eat them in moderation. It's also best if you can make them at home with healthier natural ingredients. Try making soda yourself with soda water and a splash of fresh juice. Your baked goods with organic maple syrup, and as with sodium, even herbs and spices. Bananas and other fresh fruits are also great natural sweeteners for frozen desserts as well as baked goods. So, although it may seem as though we've covered a lot of information, to summarize my discussion, while a heart-healthy diet has evolved and does indeed come down to healthy and unhealthy nutrients, recent studies show that it's equally important to understand these nutrients in the context of the foods we eat, eating patterns, and approaches that promote heart health. Thank you so much for being here today, and we will now turn to questions and answers.
Thank you so much, Julie. We will now start the Q&A session. Again, you can post your questions in the Q&A box. There were actually a couple of questions from before that applied to you, Julie. So is seltzer a good alternative to soda?
Seltzer is a great alternative to soda. Yeah. You just get pure seltzer water, not tonic or anything else that's a flavored seltzer water. That's great. There are some flavored seltzer waters out there that may not have any extra sugar added or might have 0 calories, but the pure water is the best water.
I'm confused about coconut oil. I've heard a lot of mixed things. Can you please give us your take on that?
Yeah, so coconut oil has a lot of saturated fat, but at the same time, it's a great flavoring product to use. So the way I like to use it, and what I recommend, is to use it in very small amounts. So you can take half a teaspoon and, for instance, put it in your whole grains and give a spice or 2 in there as well. And it's absolutely delicious. But it's not something that you want to have, by the several tablespoons or cups. You do want to be careful about it.
What's a good substitute to replace salt?
So as I mentioned, herbs and spices are great. And any other flavoring components that are natural. Citrus juices can be great too. Vinegars can be good. And maybe some reduced sodium soy sauces as well.
How can one eat candy and still be healthy?
Sorry, my Zoom is kind of going crazy. Candy is not the best thing to eat in any kind of quantity. So you want to make sure that you just eat it in moderation. Make it a treat for the occasional time when you can then just have a couple pieces and leave it at that. So that's where portion control also becomes really important.
What can you recommend for sweetening a cup of coffee?
Well, I think it's best actually to drink coffee unsweetened, but a little bit of a plant-based milk or a reduced fat milk actually has some natural sugars in it. So that's another option.
Are whole grain carbs like oatmeal and whole wheat heart healthy, or should it be minimized when possible?
Oatmeal is very heart healthy. The best type of oats you can eat are steel cut oats. They're the least processed. You can also have rolled oats, which are a little bit more processed, and some are rolled in white flour. Others are gluten-free, which don't have the flour. So even if you're not gluten-free, you still might want to choose rolled oats that are gluten-free for that reason.
And what's the verdict on sugar substitutes like Splenda, Equal, those type of things?
Essentially, the most you can eliminate any artificial ingredients, the better off you are. Even artificial sweeteners can trick your body and spike your insulin levels, and also have other additives that studies show may be cancer promoting and cause other chronic diseases and just be a contributor to poor health.
My kids hate fish. What's another great healthy alternative?
I'd say try them with tofu. Seitan is another great alternative to fish or meat. That's a wheat gluten product. And then tempeh is another really lovely soy product that that people tend to like a lot.
I heard that skim milk is not great because there's no fat to balance out the natural sugar content. What's your thought on this?
I think skim milk is fine. It depends on the quantities that you drink it in. If you enjoy it, I don't think it's one of the foods that you need to worry too much about.
Is caffeinated tea okay? I was told that I shouldn't drink any because it is a diuretic.
Depending on your specific individual health conditions, that may or may not be the case. So I would recommend that you talk to a registered dietitian or your doctor and just make sure that for your personal profile, that information is accurate.
Are there guidelines on how much soy is okay to eat?
There are, and anything up to about 2 cups per day is perfectly okay.
And how much dairy should you eat a week?
So the USDA recommends about 2 to 3 cups per day. But as I mentioned in my lecture, dairy is not essential to the diet if you are getting your calcium, vitamin D, protein, and vitamin B12 from other sources.
What's your stance on the Impossible Burger?
Well, I think it's great if people can reduce their meat consumption for them to try Impossible or Beyond Meat products. The less meat we eat, not only the better we're doing for our health, but also the environment and animal welfare. So you kind of kill 3 birds with 1 stone. You have to like it, of course. So I think definitely try it. It is a product that's made in the lab, so take that in consideration as well. It's not natural, but it can be okay in moderation as well.
Is yogurt a healthy breakfast food?
Yogurt can be a really healthy breakfast food. As I mentioned, it has probiotics, which are really amazing for gut health. So Greek yogurt is the least processed, and if you can choose 2% yogurts, that's a low-fat variation, that's great. I understand if there are taste preferences and you might want to eat the full-fat variation. If you do that, have very small amounts of it, but otherwise I'd stay in the category of 2% or less.
Can you explain why meat consumption is not good?
So meat consumption contains saturated fat, and as Dr. Rosanel has explained, that has a lot of negative consequences for health in general and heart health. It raises LDL cholesterol and total cholesterol, as well as triglycerides. Meat does naturally have traces of trans fat as well, so you want to take that into consideration. And certainly it can contribute to higher sodium levels and all the other risk factors that we essentially have covered today.
What are some pain-free ways that we can start phasing meat out of our diet?
I'd say do it gradually. Take everything step by step. Small changes have immense impacts on your health. So for instance, if you eat meat 3 times a day, just reducing your consumption by 1 meal per day has remarkable benefits to not only your health, but also the environment and animal welfare. So I'd say start by eliminating it 1 day a week, and then maybe a couple days a week. You can also work on reducing portion sizes. So if you want to go with that direction, maybe you don't immediately eliminate it on a whole day, but you just reduce the amount that you're eating. And you can also, when you do that, substitute with adding more vegetables, which gives you the benefits of having more vegetables in your diet as well.
If I'm allergic to nuts and soy, what's another good alternative for like those good fat foods?
So any of the fats that I mentioned on the mono and polyunsaturated fat lists are great. So olive oil, safflower oil, canola oil are all good. Fish that fish that has omega-3 fatty acids, so fattier fishes like salmon and mackerel. If you can eat seeds, that's another great source. Did they say they were allergic to seeds as well?
Yeah.
Seeds too, yeah. So that can be tough, but as long as you're eating a varied diet, you should be able to get the healthy fats that you need out of basically all the food groups.
What do you think about air frying?
I've thought to get an air fryer on many occasions myself, and it hasn't happened yet. I think it's a great alternative to regular frying. So give it a try. If it tastes great, then that's wonderful. A lot of people love it. So I think there are many, many, many different things you can do with it. So I think it's a great addition to your kitchen.
I love mine. At what point would I need to be concerned about like mercury levels if I'm eating, a lot of fish?
Well, so mercury levels are in specific types of fish like swordfish and tuna. So you want to just avoid the types of fish that are high in mercury. But that's something that you can get tested, and you don't want to eat those types of fish more than on an occasional basis. So if you start by just reducing your consumption of them, then you'll be on your way, and then check with your doctor about your actual levels.
Are there any breakfast cereals you think are acceptable?
My favorite is my homemade granola recipe. So I'm a big fan of granola, and it is a cereal that obviously you can make at home. So many cereals are not easy to make at home. So because they go through so much processing, so that would be the first. And then any other hot whole grain cereals like oatmeal or quinoa porridge, cream of wheat are all wonderful choices.
Perfect. Thank you. I think we have time for another one or two. Let me see. How many eggs can I have a day?
So you can have approximately up to 7 eggs a week, unless you have preconditions like diabetes. If you have diabetes or other preconditions that are cholesterol associated, you want to limit it to 3 or less.
This question is pretty broad, so I don't know exactly what they mean, but are vitamins good? They want to know.
Vitamins are great. I'm assuming that what they mean is vitamin supplements. So yeah, you can't go wrong with natural vitamins in real food. Vitamin supplements, there's no hard evidence that says supplements are necessary unless you have a deficiency, essentially. So if you do have a deficiency, which you should discuss with your doctor, then they'll recommend that you take supplements. But just as an addition to a normal healthy diet, if you are a healthy person without any conditions that require excess because you're deficient, don't worry about it.
All right. Thank you so much, Julie.
Thank you all so much. It was fun being here.
So now I would like to present 2 heart-healthy recipes and cooking demonstrations by myself and Julie. And I'm going to play them for you. Sorry guys, I played it without the sound. Take 2.
Hi everyone, I'm Julie Wilcox, founder of Julie Wilcox Wellness, and a nutritionist with my Master of Science degree in Nutrition and Dietetics.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jacqueline Sigelnik. I'm a second-year family medicine resident and creator of Cooking for Boards.
Today we're going to be making my whole wheat zucchini bread. Typically we buy these types of sweetbreads at the store, but they're super easy to make at home. So what makes this recipe heart healthy? The whole wheat, olive oil, zucchini, and almond milk. Together, these ingredients lower total and LDL cholesterol, systemic inflammation, blood pressure, and stabilize blood sugar.
Let's get started. First, we're going to preheat the oven to 325 degrees Fahrenheit. Then we're going to take our eggs and whisk them. Next, we pour in the maple syrup, stirring them together. Now take all the other wet ingredients, the olive oil, the almond milk, and the vanilla, and pour them in the bowl and stir them together.
So now we're going to combine all of the dry ingredients into a bowl and then sift them into the wet ingredients. You give this a little stir to make sure that it is fully combined. And then we're going to grab our strainer, which is what we're going to use to sift today. And we're going to pour all of the dry ingredients into the sifter and gently shake it and knock it against the bowl back and forth. Stir these dry ingredients together with the wet ingredients until it's all smooth and uniform.
Then we're going to grease our loaf pan with vegan butter and dust it with the whole wheat flour.
Shake it around a little so you get all the sides. And finally, we're going to pour the batter in.
Wow, this smells so good, and it's so versatile. I could eat it with my daughter for breakfast tomorrow. I could have it as a snack on Shabbos with my family.
It's super healthy too. Zucchini is full of a special fiber called pectin, which aids in digestion. And it also has a ton of carotenoids, which prevents the oxidation of cholesterol. You ready to go for it? That was so fun.
I'm so excited to try it. It's super fluffy, but moist in the middle, so it's the perfect combination.
You notice it's actually not that sweet, but it's still delicious, yeah?
I can't stop.
I'm Julie Wilcox, founder of Julie Wilcox Wellness and a nutritionist with my Master of Science degree in Nutrition and Dietetics.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jacqueline Sigelnik. I'm a second-year family medicine resident and creator of Cooking for Boards. Today we are making Julie's vegetarian meatballs. The road to heart-healthy meals includes decreasing consumption of processed red meat by substituting it with plant-based protein, and this recipe does just that.
We're going to begin by preheating the oven to 375 degrees. Then we're going to cut the eggplant into bite-sized pieces, chop the onions and garlic, and saute them until they're just barely golden. So we're gonna boil some water and add the quinoa. We start with a 1/3 cup of quinoa, but you'll notice when it's cooked, it's gonna fluff to be about a cup.
The greatest thing about this recipe is that you just put everything all at once into the food processor. The quinoa, eggplant, onions, garlic, the panko crumb, cheese, Italian seasoning, olive oil, marinara, parsley.
So I'm gonna add some olive oil to this sheet pan, and this is a step you don't wanna miss because the veggie balls will stick to the pan. Now we're gonna take an ice cream scooper and we are going to scoop out our veggie ball mix here, and we're gonna form them with our hands. They're going to be about 12 if you make them just about the size of the inner palm of your hand. But if you like them bigger, you are free to make them any size you want.
Actually, it's really good. It has like a good mix of the onion, the garlic, a lot of flavors. Even that one little bite, my mouth was bursting with flavors. It has quinoa, eggplant, garlic, which all have shown to lower your LDL, has antioxidant and anti-inflammatory effects. Thank you guys for joining us. We wanted to take a moment to thank our sponsors, Kosher Culinary Center, which offers professional and recreational classes so that there's something for anybody. Israel Gelfish at Semi Precious Films and his crew, Gourmet Glot, Grand and Essex, and the EGL Foundation.
Thank you to all of our speakers. I want to acknowledge Dr. Mimi Knoll, Dr. Rebecca Eichenbaum, Dr. Rebecca Galipter, Leora Ben-Talila, Dr. Jackie Benayoun for organizing the event. And thank you again to our sponsors for helping to make this a successful summit. And please don't forget to fill out the survey for your chance to win a $100 Amazon gift card. And you can follow us on Instagram, JOWMA_org, for updates on all of our future events.